We are joined in studio by a man that I partly think we owe our careers to, certainly the off-script careers too, because he was one of our very first guests some 4 years ago, Rob.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it's so special to have him in our midst, actually, because September the 24th, 2018, a couple of weeks after Off-Script launched, we became aware of the story of Valentino Dixon. And somehow we were able to reach out and actually make contact with Valentino just a few days, I believe, after his release from the Attica Correctional Facility, where he spent 27 years wrongly incarcerated for a crime that he did not commit. Let's actually revisit, if we can, Chris, before we bring Valentino into the conversation, let's revisit that initial chat we had with him on the phone just over 4 years ago.
Well, I felt like it was a dream. You know, I had been waiting so long, and I didn't know when the nightmare was going to end. You know, so the moment that she said that I was free to go, you know, it was like unbelievable. You know, so many emotions went through that, you know, my legs was weak. I didn't know if I was going to fall out or I didn't know what was going on. I can't describe the feeling.
Now, in the intervening years, in the 4 years since that conversation, Valentino has had a Christmas shout out from former President Barack Obama, who now has his artwork at home. He's met, I believe, the likes of Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods, who have become familiar with his work. He's got a book out, The Soul of an Unfreed Man, Drawing My Way to Freedom, 27 years of false imprisonment at the notorious Attica prison. He's going to appear on Steph Curry's new podcast. We're very fortunate to have him in our midst and fortunate to welcome him here. It's always been a dream of his to come to Dubai. So we say, from Off Script and all of us here, Valentino, it's great to have you in studio. How are we?
I am out of this world right now. I'm so wonderful to be here. It is a dream come true. And, you know, a lot of people don't know the history, but when I was in Attica, I drew 7 golf courses of Dubai because I seen Dubai in magazines. I said, this has got to be the most beautiful place in the world. And I said, I got to draw some of these golf courses. Never believing I would be here, but it's like, I got to draw these golf courses in Dubai. You know, so I actually brought them with me today.
Cannot wait to see them.
Yeah. Nobody's really seen them. I had them, kept them put up in the closet because of my American golf courses is what people like to buy in America. You know, and the 12th hole of Augusta is what's made me famous. And so I said, I got to get to Dubai. I got to share these golf courses with the people of Dubai. You know.
And Valentino, it's so special for us to have you here. As Robbie mentioned, it was a very emotional interview for us. But hearing that clip, I mean, how did that make you feel after 4 years, reliving that specific moment?
I don't know. It seemed like it was just yesterday. You know, it don't seem like 4 years has passed.
We've got an awful lot to get into. There'll be a lot of our listeners, Valentino, perhaps weren't aware of Off-Script 4 years ago. There'll be an awful lot of people today unaware of your story, and I want to unpack it in various ways. I guess, though, before we do that, how have the last 4 years been for you? Because being incarcerated for 27 years, I can't even begin to fathom what that was like. But how have you rebuilt your life since being released?
Let me say, God is the best of planners. You know, so I have a really strong faith. I converted to Islam 5 years into my sentence, you know, and before I left Attica, I was the imam of Attica, you know, and I recite the Arabic, you know, I make 5 prayers a day, haven't missed a prayer in 15 years, you know. A lot of people don't know that part of the story.
Wow.
You know, and so my faith has led me everywhere. I know that my story is to change other people's lives because all of us are going to go through something in life and we don't get to decide what it is. You know, and when it comes, you just have to push through it, and you have to have faith and courage and determination and willpower and see yourself through anything that comes your way. And this is how I live my life, and this is what I try to give to the people that I come across.
Because you've been doing a lot of work, I believe, or I've read, that to sort of give back, to work with the Prison Reform Foundation, among other things, to kind of, you know, having won your freedom, it would have been easy for you to completely step away from that world, but you've deliberately gone back into it, Valentino.
Well, I started a Prison Reform Foundation, the Art of Freedom, and I mean, just as I was coming here in the Uber, I had 2 prison calls come through. So I'm always on the phone with guys that's incarcerated, their families. I give legal advice. You know, I try to raise money for guys that's wrongfully convicted because, you know, without funds, you can't fight a case. That's just the reality of the American justice system, and I believe that's all over the world. So, it's about giving back. Of course, I could be saying, okay, I had enough of this, but I don't get no sleep. This is 24 hours a day for me. Either I'm drawing a golf course, I'm working, within the justice system to try to make it more fair, just, and equal, or I'm drawing and teaching people how to draw. And then I started my own clothing line. So it's just, 24/7, just moving forward.
And Steph Curry, I've got to ask about this podcast as well. How did that come about?
Well, he reached out. He wanted to do my documentary. And I kind of turned him down. I didn't like the details of it. But then we came together for the podcast. And actually, I just completed my documentary. I have the trailer I can share with you guys, too, for the documentary.
Nice. Okay, we're going to do
that.
And
I produced it myself and directed and produced it and narrated it.
Okay.
A lot of people say he can't, there's no way that he can pull that off. Wait till you see these 2 minutes.
I kind of want to go all the way back to the start if I can, because for the uninitiated who perhaps aren't familiar with this story, can you take us back to 1991? You ended up in a prison for a crime that you didn't commit. When I take you back there, where the heck does the mind go?
I'm a 21-year-old kid, and you ever heard of the Twilight Zone?
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. The shooting that occurred that I was accused of occurred before 90-something people out at a public restaurant. And I was there, and I took off, and I ran and jumped in my car. We was all young. Everybody just, dispersed, and I was pulled over and taken into custody. But 2 days later, the person responsible confessed and told the detectives that he committed the crime, and 8 people came forth and cleared me of the crime also. But all of them were disregarded. Authorities were too embarrassed to admit that they made a mistake. 10 months later, I went to trial. I didn't have any money for a good attorney, and I had a public defender. He didn't call any of the witnesses or introduce the confession to the jury, and they found me guilty of all charges.
I mean, that is remarkable. Do you know why they zeroed in on you, or what sort of evidence, quote unquote, they decided to present that they managed to find you guilty?
Yeah. Well, just being there, okay, and they just wanted to solve the case. It was a shooting, and they didn't care. I was a young black man, put it that way. I hate to use the race thing, but within, I'm going to say 48 hours, they realized I didn't commit the crime. And then they tested me to see if I fired a weapon, and they withheld the results for 27 years.
27 years.
Yes.
I look at you now, Valentino, and I'm not just saying this because you're staring right back at me, but how the heck are you as well-rounded as you appear to be in front of me? What does 27 years in a prison cell, 8x6, 9x7, whatever
Right.
that room was, what the heck does that do to you mentally?
Well, let me say this. I didn't have a strong faith when I went in. Of course, I was a young kid. It took me about 7 years, and my uncle told me, he says, if you can reclaim your talent, you can reclaim your life. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And, I went to Performing Arts High School for artwork, so I was very good with art since I was about 4 years old. And I hadn't drawn or painted or anything in those first 7 years of prison. And he sent me some colored pencils and some paper. And he says, if you can reclaim your talent, you can reclaim your life. And I'm like, I didn't understand at the time, But after about 6 months, it started resonating in my mind, like I have to do something here. I just can't waste away in prison. I'm innocent, but that's not good enough in the American justice system. It was my artwork that I had to become really good at in order to get national attention, which brought attention to my wrongful conviction. If it wasn't for the artwork, I would still be sitting in prison right now.
And what drew you to the golf courses? Because I understand you had never
Yes.
actually set foot on a golf
Yes,
course.
I never. So I
when
grew
you
up in-
decided to start drawing them.
Well, I never golfed before. And Roberto, he mentioned that my uncle said to draw golf courses. My uncle, he got me the first art supplies, but it was the prison warden who said, hey, you need to start drawing golf courses. He asked me to draw his first golf course. Okay. Then my uncle said draw more. So they kind of is a combination of both people, And they were like tag teaming. Now, this is the warden of the prison. He's the top guy, And I had become known as the artist in Attica because all I did, once I started drawing after 7 years, I never stopped. I drew up to 10 hours a day. And I became known as the artist in Attica. And so the warden was like, you know, hey, draw my favorite golf hole. And I'm like, I'm a black kid from the inner city, and, you know, I don't know how to golf. We don't know anything about that. You know, but anyway, he brought the 12 hole of Augusta in. I drew it for him. He loved it. My uncle's like, you need to draw more golf holes, you know, and everybody's encouraged me to draw golf holes. I didn't know why, you know, but I actually enjoyed drawing the golf holes. So I started drawing them every single day. And, you know, I mean, I had about 400 pieces of artwork that I had did before that. Okay, anywhere from landscapes, animals, people, and I brought some of those pictures with me here to Dubai. And so I started drawing these golf holes. Then I started reading some of the issues of Golf Digest magazine, you know, and I came across a column called Golf Saved My Life by Max Adler. And each month, Max would write about someone who's going through some type of challenge in their life, and golf was the only time they felt better. It kind of, you know, strengthened their spirit. And I started to correlate that with what I was going through. At the time, I had 20 years in on a wrongful conviction. And I'm saying these golf drawings are helping to keep me going. I mean, I have friends that committed suicide. And so as far as I'm concerned, my mind was on borrowed time, fragile too. But one of the things that really kept me going was Islam, believe it or not. And I had converted to Islam, and I started praying 5 times a day. I studied, I learned how to recite the Arabiya, and, you know, and I realized that I was being tested. The Allah was testing me. And so, and then I started realizing that we're all going to go through something in life, and we don't get to decide what it is.
No.
So this is my test. So, and I'm looking at this miracle of these drawings that I'm doing inside the 6-by prison cell. And this is a miracle to me. And the guards are like, if we didn't see this, we wouldn't believe it, you know, because the drawings look like paintings, you know, to most people. And so that was the signs from Allah to me that everything was going to work out, that this is your test.
Can you paint me a picture, or paint us all a picture, Valentino, and don't hold anything back? How brutal was Attica as a prison?
Well, Attica is one of the worst prisons in America. Okay, it had the worst riots where 43 people died. Okay, and the abuse is documented. That it is atrocious. It is a human rights violations going on inside that prison. You know, ask me how I survived. Only Allah knows. I knew I was protected, because to survive 27 years there and not come out emotionally and mentally damaged, you know, but to create these beautiful golf scenes inside that prison cell today, it's like even a miracle for me.
And how did your mentality change and your mindset change about the experience over the course of 27 years? Because that's a long time. Mm-hmm. You know, I would imagine that there's an initial period of disbelief, maybe of resentment, because it wasn't fair what happened to you. But then how does your sort of mental journey continue over that period of time?
The best way I can explain it is this: is to look at the whole world, look at all of the pain and the injustice that go on in the world. I mean, imagine being born a slave and dying a slave. Imagine being, you know, in the Holocaust, or being a captive, a prisoner of war. Imagine being a 10-year-old kid that is dying of cancer, is not going to live to see their 11th birthday. So when I take all of that in, I say I'm a blessed man. I'm healthy. And I never had an operation. I'm 53 years old. You know, so you have to be grateful for the things that you have. And because of this is what moves my spirit. This is what keeps me going. You know, this is what makes me grateful, because, you know, it's easy to complain and whine and cry and ball up into a corner, you know, but I wanted to leave a legacy. I wanted to say, hey, I didn't just go to prison. I survived prison, and I walked out of prison to help others, to lift other people's spirit, and to create this beautiful artwork that can hang on people's walls forever.
I tell you what, one thing I will say, you are not 53. You look
Thank
a
you.
million
I just had a
pesetas.
I was going to just think of that.
Valentino, I'm going to humble you a little here. I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. Let's get to some messages, because this one right out the top shelf, Rest easy, Nelson Mandela. Valentino is here to carry the torch for grace, faith, and human spirit. What a man. Just want to say an honour to listen to your story. True inspiration and welcome to Dubai, says another. And then another one, you guys, this interview is just brilliant. Feeling all the feels. We thank you for those messages. And I guess you do too, Valentino. A lot of love out there because your story is so inspirational. It's inspirational because of the man that I look at right now. The fact you're so humble, the fact that you are so well-rounded, I find incredible. You've talked about finding faith, Allah, Islam, as being a big help to that. I want to get back to your story. You talk about drawing, painting, or drawing golf courses. Golf Digest step in. That's the first step, though, to getting you exonerated. Where do we go to next on this story?
Well, for me, it was the start of the journey towards getting the freedom, because I understand that it doesn't just happen all of a sudden. It takes things like the Golf Digest to open up doors where other media outlets were coming, and and so I knew it was only a matter of time. Just keep pushing. And, it's like every month somebody wanted to pick up the story, okay? And I was always willing to do an interview, And so they gave me a polygraph test, which I passed, okay? Even though they knew I was innocent, they said, "Here, take a polygraph test." So I took that and passed the polygraph test. And so Georgetown University students get involved. They wanted to use my story as a class project. And I said, "Okay, cool, let's do it." And so in the midst of them doing the class project, they did a documentary, like a little short 15-minute documentary, and the prosecutor who tried this case agreed to participate. And they have him in an interview, and they say, "Hey, you guys took Valentino's clothes. You tested him to see if he fired a weapon. What happened?" And he admitted on camera that the results came back negative, but they had never turned him over. Okay, so ultimately, that's what got me out of prison, not the 8 witnesses in the confession.
Let me ask, and I think I already know the answer to this. That prosecutor, did anything come of that admission?
Well, he was fired, but he was hired by another agency about a year later.
That's a disgrace.
This is American justice system.
It's a disgrace, is what it is.
And I've got to ask you, 27 years on, what are your recollections of that day that you were exonerated? What were the main emotions that were running through you?
Well, I was released in Buffalo. So usually in September, it's kind of chilly in Buffalo. But this particular day, it was sunny, it was bright, it was 80 degrees, And I walk out the courthouse, and there's about 12 steps, and the media's at the bottom of the steps. And all I could think is that I'm not going to make it down these steps. My legs is going to give out on me. I had a premonition that you're about to fall down these steps because my legs was weak. And so if you look at the video and they have it on camera, I'm walking really slow. I'm taking one step at a time because I already know my legs is not any good right now. But I just wanted to reach, I wanted to actually spread my arms in the air, and I didn't want anybody to think I was nuts. I wanted to spread my arms in the air and tell God, "You can take me now because you released me from this place." I didn't want to die in prison. I had too many friends that died in Attica, and I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to die in prison. And once I was released, it was like, I don't need anything else in this life. But God had more plans for me after this.
And James' message, Valentino, sums up, I think, what we're all feeling in here. He says, "Got to be one of your very best guests in the history of Off Script. Will he visit the golf clubs here, the ones that he drew?" And the answer to that question is...
Absolutely, yes.
How many you drew? I
drew 7.
7
yes.
Dubai courses.
And these have been under wraps. These are yet to really be revealed to the world.
I have had these things put up. And because the American golf courses is what, I'm in America.
Sure.
So I don't know, I just had them put up, and I just decided I got some time, let me jump on the plane and go to Dubai. They was like, "You crazy, why don't you plan it a little better?" I was like, "No, I'm just going to go over there, And this was a dream of mine, to come over here. I from magazine, articles, I just said, this is the most beautiful place in the world. Besides maybe Florida or California, Hawaii. I was just like, I got to get over there and I got to share these golf courses with the people of Dubai.
Well, listen, Valentino, it gives me great pleasure to announce to you that I've had a WhatsApp in the last 10 minutes from a very good friend of ours, Simon Corkle, who's the tournament director of the Dubai Desert Classic. He's been listening. He's already well aware of your story, and he is offering to roll out the red carpet for you at the Desert Classic, Dubai Desert Classic, end of January. I will make sure that you two men are connected, and we're going to see an awful lot more of you, I'm sure. So, no, you and I were discussing, and all four of us were discussing, the fact that after the fact, you get released from prison and the journey's yet only beginning.
And I think this is so well documented that with so many cases for people who do get exonerated or who do come out of prison after serving their sentences, that it's actually adjusting into the real world. That's quite a difficult thing because for one thing, maybe people haven't had the right skill development. They're coming out with sort of maybe zero financial savings. What's the actual, after the glory of being exonerated, sort of you feel that euphoria initially and then it sort of becomes real life. What was that transition like for you?
Well, I knew it was not going to be easy because too many of my comrades was released after so many years and didn't make it. They returned back to Attica, a lot of these guys. And so I took the time to really put my mind in a good place and not be stuck in 1991 when I was arrested. And that's the problem that with a lot of people that are incarcerated become institutionalized. So I said, you know what, I'm going to read as much as possible. So I read at least maybe 500 books or more just on life, self-help, financial literacy, all of the things that I think I would need in order to be successful in the world. It's tough out here. People are struggling, and so if I can educate myself and utilize the time in prison to draw up to 10 hours and then read maybe another 4 hours, then there's no way that I cannot succeed, And I convinced myself of this. And so walking out, the world wasn't something that was unfamiliar to me because I had observed everything. I knew what type of phone I wanted. I knew I wanted an Android instead of an iPhone because it would have been easier to use, to navigate. But my daughter had other plans. She said, "You got to become an iPhone family, Dad." And so she made me get this iPhone 8 at the time. I wanted to throw it down the street after a couple of days. It's like, there's no way. But I learned how to use it. And just like anything else, everything is password and, setting up a system in order for, you to be able to navigate through the apps and everything else. So I just say, hey, I got to spend maybe 3-4 hours a day learning how to use all of this technology because I realized a lot of my family members and friends weren't that good with the technology. So I said, you know what, I can become better than them because I got the discipline. In prison, it's all about the discipline, and so I just take everything in stride. I mean, my spirit is like, for example, I wanted to learn how to use the Uber app. I'm in a hotel. I'm only been out maybe 2 months, and I'm like, I'm tired of the taxi. I'm gonna get an Uber, but I don't have the app on my phone. So I stop a guy in the hotel. I said, hey, you think you could help me put this Uber app on my phone? And I got my credit card and I got my phone. And he's like, are you effing seriously? Are you fucking seriously? And I'm like, yeah, guy. I start laughing. I keep my smile on my face because I know the guy don't really mean no harm. I said, yeah, man, I'm serious. He says, what's going on? I'm being pranked here. I said, no. I said, listen, I just did 27 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. You just need to Google my name and you'll see that I'm not bullshitting you. And he Googled me and he's like, oh, wow. Hey, I'll help you out any way I can. So he showed me how to use the Uber app. And then he looked at me and he teared up. He says, can I give you a smile? Can I give you a hug? I said, yeah. And he says, you changed my life. He said, how are you smiling and you went through everything you went through? And I just said, because I didn't allow it to break my spirit.
And that's it. You didn't allow.
And I guess with so many young people suffering from mental health, that's become a kind of big talking point, I think, culturally as well. There's been a lot of media coverage on it, both good and bad. You've been kind of a conduit to that, and you've got an incredibly strong message. Yes. How many people have you connected with, reached out to, who have kind of drawn inspiration from your story and who've also had a profound impact on you as well?
Well, it started inside the prison because mental health is a big problem inside the correctional facilities in America because they closed down a lot of the the mental health facilities, and they just pushed everybody inside the prison. So, I mean, every day I'm motivating 10, 20 people to not give up and then trying to help them get a focus. It's not an easy thing because a lot of people need medication, and then if they don't get the right medication, it kind of slows them down and it puts them to a whole nother place where they can't even come back to normalcy, So, and I'm not an expert on this. The only thing I can do is if somebody needs an inspirational word or something that I know can help uplift them, it's my job as a human being to try to give them the best advice possible, something that can take that person out of that darkness that they're in.
Valentino, what's next for you? I look at you now, and again, I'm just amazed. I truly am. You've talked a lot about your faith, and we've had actually a real good message in actual fact from Wazim, and you might actually be able to shed light on this. He says, interesting that today I came across an article about increasing numbers of inmates in the US who are turning to Islam. Maybe your guest can share some insight into why that is. Why are more and more people turning to Islam? Is it because of what's rooted, in terms of the faith and what it brings you and that belief that you're going to be okay?
Well, I was born a Christian, okay? And what attracted me to Islam is the history, and just the concept and the belief in one God, to believe that there's one God that doesn't, associate no partners with him. But ultimately, whether you're a Muslim, Christian, Baptist, Buddhist, it doesn't matter if you're not a good person. You have to have a good heart. You have to treat people right. I can't just have a title and say, oh, I'm Muslim and I pray 5 times a day, but I don't open the door for a woman or a lady or help assist somebody when I see that they need assistance, or I'm impatient with people, or if I'm not good to my neighbor, these type of things. If I see somebody in need and I've just turned my nose up and, so the Islam is to make me a better person, and that's the only purpose that it serves, is just to make me a good person, and that hopefully that Allah or God or our Lord will have mercy on me and bless me with the Jannah, with the paradise. That's what it serves for me.
Can I ask a very quick question, a personal question as well? Now that I'm a father, you mentioned your daughter, and I'm conscious we haven't really touched on your daughter. How is it being a dad?
All right, my daughter Valentina was 6 months old when I was arrested, and what makes her such an awesome kid is that even though I wasn't there, I constantly wrote her letters, and I was able to talk to her on the phone, and I see her whenever a family member could bring her, because me and her mom wasn't together. But I'm so proud of her because she became a school teacher. She graduated and she loves kids and she never got into trouble, and she's just the most awesome kid in the world, and I'm just so proud of her.
That's lovely. Another common question that's coming in, and I do want to get to this because quite a few people have texted this in to find out, have you had any compensation from the government, from the state, for the hardship that you went through so unfairly?
Absolutely not. Not as of yet. The government in America has been delaying my compensation. They do it with all of them. They try to drag it out as long as possible. So I've been in litigation for 4 years, haven't received anything, and I haven't made that very important to me. I'm just living my life, and I want to leave a legacy, and I want to make it on my own. So compensation is not something I look forward to.
Valentino, I can tell you as well that David Burke's been in touch with us as well. David, a good friend of the show as well. He works for Golf Digest Middle East.
Oh, wow.
They're keen to have a chat with you over the coming days as well. So we're keeping you busy.
Okay, cool. Yes.
I want to
we filled out your diary.
I love it.
Yeah, for the next 3 days.
We will be taking a 10% cut.
That's cool.
Valentino.
Hey, man, you got to broker your feet.
Exactly that. I do jest, of course.
Dubai Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.